This is Apex Legends Season 7, and oh boy is it going to be a big one. I was lucky enough to play it early thanks to EA Game Changers, so I'm going to cover absolutely everything new in this video. We're going to show you Olympus, all of the new areas in Olympus and the overall feel and aesthetic of the map. We'll showcase Horizon, all of her abilities and her use cases in the meta, the new weapon changes, the new overall meta changes, the battle pass and the new skins, the new Trident hover vehicle, new lore hidden in the map, the new clubs feature, and so much more along the way. We're going to jump into it first by taking a look at the new meta changes both for legends and weapons. We're going to start off with some very happy news for a very happy Marvin robot. Pathfinder has had another grapple buff. Pathfinder's grapple now maxes out at 30 seconds. However, you really have to go a long distance to get this now. It's usually around 25 seconds and sometimes a lot shorter. They've definitely increased the length and distance of the grapple before it reaches max cooldown, and the timer has been reduced by 5 seconds at max, so this is a very good buff. I've played Pathfinder in Season 7 quite a bit already, and I have to say this change is absolutely needed. You feel so much more free to move around without too much punishment now. Now Loba also got an interesting buff. You can still loot 2 items from her ultimate, but you can also loot infinite ammo. You can keep picking up all ammo in the area and it doesn't count towards those 2 slots per player. So if you're really running low on ammo, Loba can absolutely change the game for you. This one's also going to excite you guys. The R99 is out of the care package. It's been reduced to its pre-Season 6 stats, so you have the same magazine and damage as in Season 5. In its place, the Prowler has been put into the care package. It seems to be perhaps the same amount of stats. I have to wait for the official patch notes, but either way, this thing has always shredded, and it's going to shred when you get your hands on it in the new care package. The Sentinel also got a very nice buff. It no longer does amped shield damage when you charge it, instead it just does pure amped damage. You can take a 75 damage shot and do 88 damage, or a headshot turns into 176 damage. There have been rumors that there will also be a buff this season for Rampart, Octane, Mirage and Watson, but I've yet to confirm this or figure out what exactly they are. Now, you may have noticed that there is no new weapon this season. We've got so much more content already that it doesn't really matter too much, and Olympus, as you'll see soon, is a very different map to the other two, which means it's going to change up the meta a lot just because of the engagements on this map. Long range weapons may be favored more. You'll see more about what I mean when we get into Olympus later on in this video. So next up we have Horizon, the latest legend to join Apex Legends. If you haven't watched Horizon's Promise cinematic, definitely watch that to learn about her story, but let's talk about her abilities today. Horizon's passive is called Spacewalk. It gives her increased air control and reduces full impact with Horizon's custom spacesuit. Horizon's tactical gravity lift reverses the flow of gravity, lifting players upwards and boosting them outwards when they exit. And Horizon's ultimate is Black Hole. You can deploy Newt and it will create a micro black hole that pulls players in towards it. Now, in game, Horizon is definitely a mobility based legend. Her gravity lift allows her to get up high very quickly, push players fast, and also displace enemies if you need to. We're going to go more in depth in a future video on how to use her effectively, but essentially you want to be using this to quickly reposition, surprise enemies or throw them out the way. You can also use it to block doorways and just cause some mayhem, and I'm sure you can start to theorycraft about how this ability can be good. Horizon's ultimate is a little harder to get good with, but once you do learn how to use it to its full potential, it's really quite valuable. If you throw the black hole down, it takes a while to boot up, and then players nearby are sucked into the center. Now, you can run out of the black hole's radius, but it does take quite a lot of time. If you have a movement based ability like a grapple, a jump pad, a gravity lift or Wraith's phase, you'll be able to get away from these pretty easily, but this could be used to pull players out of cover, pull them to a certain direction, slow them down when they're trying to escape, or even just block doorways to prevent a push from happening. You can shoot and destroy the black hole by shooting Newt, and this will get rid of the black hole effect and players can then push, but it's definitely going to slow players down. One of my favourite things to do with Horizon is to throw down the gravity lift at your feet, go into the gravity lift, turn your back to it and then jump out, and you'll get a big boost of air straight towards your enemy. Having this quick vertical ability is so incredible. You're going to have a lot of players pushing you from vertically above you, which is something completely new in Apex Legends. This would never even happen with the jump pad, and you have to get in the game on November 4th to really feel what I mean by this. The cooldown is only 15 seconds on this thing, so you can use it a lot. By the time you've thrown the gravity lift down and actually used it the first time, your cooldown is going to be at like 10 or 9 seconds already. The gravity lift only stays there for about 5 seconds before disappearing, which means you have about 1 or 2 uses to really make the most out of it, and if you're going to be pushing someone with a squad, you definitely want everyone to be nearby so you can all use it together at the same time. Of course, there's plenty more tips and more in-depth stuff to look at with Horizon in future, and we're definitely going to be covering her more as the days go on, so stay tuned for that. But now let's jump into the rest of the content in Season 7. Next up, let's take a look at the Battle Pass. As you can see here, we have some background footage showcasing all of the skins. Once we do this, we can talk about the changes. They've removed the XP system and replaced it with a much easier to understand star system. Now you'll get stars for completing daily and weekly challenges, and those stars progress you towards unlocking the next Battle Pass level. It's much easier to understand, the challenges are easier to understand, and you'll have a quicker understanding of what you need to do in your next game to keep progressing the Battle Pass. It's definitely a nice change. There's also some nice UI adjustments which are great to see, and overall it's just a much more refined Battle Pass system. Now the highlight of the Battle Pass cosmetics has to be this new R99 skin. Now that it's on the floor, you're going to be able to use this. This is the tier 100 and the tier 110 R99 skins, and they are reactive, but the reactive effect is a little more subtle than previous Battle Pass skins, and I have to say I'm a big fan of it. We also got a beautiful Prowler, a few different Legend skins, and of course the absolute best skins in this season are this Octane one and this Wraith one. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fans liking these skins, there's no doubt about that. So next, let's take a look at the Trident. This is perhaps something that a lot of people are excited for and also scared about. This is Apex Legends' first vehicle, so it's definitely a scary prospect. Now, first things first, you cannot kill anybody on this thing. Well, sort of, we'll get into that in a minute. You cannot run anyone over. If you drive into them, it just sort of pushes them out of the way. Now, the reason for adding this vehicle is because Olympus has a lot of open space, and the level designers wanted to create a way for players to get around faster than using the traditional jump towers. So the Trident's kind of there to provide quick flanking routes, quick options to get back into the ring. It's definitely something that you're going to be wanting to use to go from point A to point B. It's not a weapon, it's not useful for pushing fights. There's a very long animations for getting in and out of this thing. So yeah, it's for repositioning, it's for getting from point A to point B and traveling the map faster. You can ride on this thing, and you can also have 2 teammates riding on it. You cannot have enemies riding on your Trident. If a player gets in the driver's seat, you cannot get enemies riding alongside you. This thing goes pretty fast on its own, but it also has a boost function. You can boost with this thing and the speed is phenomenal. You're going to travel like halfway across the map in seconds, which is absolutely crazy. It takes a long time for the boost to charge up, so keep an eye on that boost meter at the bottom of the screen. Now, the damage on this thing is pretty interesting. If you shoot the Trident itself, the damage will be dealt equally across all players on the Trident. The Trident itself will never explode. You can't shoot it, you can't destroy it, but instead you'll simply be dishing out damage across all players. So let's say you have an R99 that does 11 damage. It will be spread out across all 3 players, doing about 4 damage each on each player. Now, if you do line up the shot to actually hit a player instead of the Trident itself, all of that damage will go to the player you're shooting. So if you line up a good Kraber shot or something, it will hit that player and knock that player. Now, there are some ways to disable this thing. Crypto's EMP, arc stars, and as far as I understand it, the Charged Sentinel, although I haven't had a chance to try it myself. Also, Watson's Fences will disable it temporarily as well. One other thing, if you drive this thing off the edge of the map, this is the only time it will be destroyed, and when you do this, it can be quite a good way to reposition nearby. When you ride on this thing, you can use your weapons, your abilities, and even heal. However, the driver is pretty vulnerable. They can't do anything, they can't heal, so if you're running from the ring, you may have to sort of swap out the driver so that each player has a chance to heal, especially in the later rings. But that's a possibility now, which is really exciting to see. When you view the map, you can see each Trident location. I think there's 10 spread across the map, and of course most of them never really get destroyed, so you're going to be able to find them late game. Now, one exciting thing is you can put your abilities on this thing. Yes, that means you can put the turret on the back of the Trident and have some absolute carnage with it. I'll say now, it's very hard to fire whilst driving fast on this thing, and because you're such a big target, it's not as OP as you think. It's really not that great as a weapon to use like this, but it is a lot of fun. Definitely give it a try. So that's the Trident, a fun way to get across the map very quickly, reposition, get out of the ring when things are looking rough. It's a very fun way to travel. Now, that's not the only new way to travel on Olympus, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute and showcase all of the new points of interest. But first, let's take a look at the clubs feature in Season 7. Clubs is a new way to invite like-minded players and build your own small community of players so that you always have someone to play with when you're online. You can invite up to 30 players into your club, and the reason it's such a low number is because the devs believe that a smaller group of players will create a sort of close-knit community feel. They want these players in the club to actually play with each other, feel comfortable talking with each other and jumping in games with each other. Use this to find players that you think will match your playstyle. You can use tags to find clubs that suit you, or you can make your own club and set your own tags and limits such as level and rank limits. You also get a new page where you can see who's online, how other people's games have been going, and you even have a little chat box to chat with anyone and try and arrange games. I've saved the best for last. Let's take a closer look at Olympus, the third map in Apex Legends, coming to Season 7. I'll show off all of the new points of interest and unique features, and also give an insight into what to expect on November 4. This map will feel a lot different to Kings Canyon and World's Edge. Both maps have a very closed off feel to them. Mountains are used to block travel areas and narrow your line of sight. In Olympus, they've used buildings and tunnels to have the same effect, but the difference is you can often go through these tunnels, fly over them, or find ways around them. This makes it far easier to travel through the map and gives you much more freedom to choose how to get from point A to point B. There's also a lot more verticality in Olympus. Expect most areas to have multiple floors, including the ground floor, higher areas, and even underground areas. Most large points of interest have multiple entry points with large pathways or zip lines leading up to them. This once again creates more player freedom when you need to push a fight or escape. Hopefully this should ease the impact of third-party fights. Olympus is also incredibly beautiful. It's a city in the sky that was originally reserved for the richest of the Outlands. So you have high-class shopping areas, residential suites, and stunning scenic views. Everything is sort of manufactured to look this way, so the terrain has this cookie-cutter feel to it. This is great for gameplay because it means you don't have any strange cliff edges, rocks, or terrain that's hard to traverse like we do in Kings Canyon and World's Edge. Your freedom to travel the map is so much more in Olympus, and that can be overwhelming at first. It's definitely going to take a lot of time to learn this map, so let me run you through each point of interest. Let's start with the Rift, a really unique area that ties the rest of the map together. The Rift was created after an accident happened, and that caused the citizens of Olympus to abandon the floating city. For gameplay, it offers a large open area with multiple spots to loot. Around the edge, it feels expansive with multiple layers to find loot, which means you're not going to land here and find it difficult to get guns like you are in somewhere like Fragment and World's Edge. Now, if you go into this big rift in the middle, you'll be transported through a large tunnel called the Phase Runner, which will take you to the center of the map. Once you're here, you can go again back to the rift, or you can go the other way and travel all the way down to the other side of the map. The central tunnel system lets you travel the entire map in seconds. When you come out of the phase runner, you'll be in phase mode for a short period, allowing you to get your bearing and check for nearby players. So with the Trident and the phase runner, you can see how easy it is to quickly travel this map. Because of that, Olympus feels smaller at times, but the actual playable area is larger than Kings Canyon, but smaller than World's Edge. Next to the Rift, we have Power Grid and Docks. These spots are the less colourful areas of the map. There are giant cranes, stacks of crates, and big walls towering over you. The space itself feels very open and overwhelming, so you'll need to think carefully about traversing it. You're not going to be as free to rotate through this area without thinking about mobility. It's a bit easier to be caught out in the open, and you'll see later that's quite a big theme with Olympus as a whole. Next we have Carrier. It's the inside of the ship that was also found on World's Edge. It's filled with lootable areas and multiple entrances. After we have Oasis. The 2-story tower is beautiful. It features a really unique opportunity for fights. You can climb up to the 2 stories on each building or zip down underneath. On the under area you have a bunch of high tier loot, but watch out, there's another vantage point that can be accessed from the west side of Oasis that overlooks the under area. My favourite thing about Oasis is that you can look down from the ground floor above. I mean, I'll let the footage do the talking here. This is just awesome. Connecting Power Grid, Docks, the Rift and Oasis is Turbine. This is a large area that circles around a big inaccessible turbine in the center of the map. You can expect a lot of rotations to happen through here, so expect fights throughout the game. There are small tunnels carved into Turbine to give you a bit of a sneaky escape to pretty much any direction in the map. One such tunnel leads to Energy Depot, a deceptively small point of interest. There are so many different levels here to engage from, on the tops of buildings, on the ground floor or underground, and there are many passageways and climbable areas that connect everything together. South of Energy Depot, things start to get into the more colourful areas. Gardens is this large open area with loot scattered evenly. It's a good place to land for a bit of a break from some of the hotter drops like Rift and Turbine. Grow Towers is another colourful point of interest with lots of open ground loot. You have these 2 large towers in the middle with multiple floors. Each floor rotates, so it can get a little confusing to attack, but a good horizon tactical will always help. We then have Orbital Cannon and Solar Array south of Grow Towers, both of which offer some unique engagements. And then we have the open area around Hammond Labs. Now this space here is where you'll see the most carnage. The open area here seems to draw everybody late game, so expect piles of players here at all times of the game. Because the phase runner tunnels can lead you here too, it's even more hectic. To the left of Hammond Labs we also have Estates, a beautiful residential area that's filled with multi-floored buildings. Usually this spot is quiet, but it's a great place to land to get loot before pushing somewhere hot. Go further south and we have Elysium and Hydroponics. Elysium is like this small area attached to the main city, and it has some very high tier loot. Expect golden weapons or loot here every game. Hydroponics is another area with a confusing number of floors. You have the ground floor with the hydroponic buildings, and then a lower level 2, and there are passageways and doors that connect it all together. Finally, we have Bonsai Plaza, a multi-level building complex with all sorts of routes to take to engage fights both on the ground and up above. The zip lines on each tower allow access to the higher floors. This is also the building where a certain legend may have had her parents killed, so I'm definitely going back here to explore location quips when Season 7 launches. In between all of these points of interest, we have open ground with some buildings scattered here and there, a lot of beautiful terrain, but what you'll notice is the terrain and rocks between each location is sort of more spread out than in World's Edge and Kings Canyon, so you really have to be careful with your rotations. Either take a jump tower, a trident, or be very careful when you go from point A to point B. Now, I guess we'll end by showing all of Horizon's skins, finishes, and all that stuff, all of the cosmetics, because I know a lot of you guys like that. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Got so much more content coming on this channel, including a more in-depth look at Horizon and the Trident later today and tomorrow, so make sure to subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the comments. Cheerio!